Today, we're going to sew a towel scarf. This can be such a great gift for the person in your life that loves to grill or loves to bake, the chef that you'd like to buy something for, or make it for yourself. We're going to go ahead and start this project. I'm going to cut off the selvage edge of my fabric. So we're going to start by making a tube. So this tube of fabric will go around your neck, and then we're going to use one towel. We're going to cut it in half and add it to each end of the tube. So the fabric that I chose, you can see that it's directional, and I didn't have enough yardage to make it so that the pattern would go up and down. So I decided to piece it with another fabric that I had in my fabric stash. So the reason why I'm cutting it into pieces is I'm kind of making a little bit like a quilt. So I'm piecing this grilling fabric design where it has the different animals and it's labeling the different cuts of meat of the animals. So I'm going to show you how to piece this fabric together. So if you have a directional print and you want to use it, but you don't have enough to cut the yardage the right direction. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting 5 pieces of fabric with this print on them that are 4.5 inches tall by 13 inches wide. So now I'm just going to make sure I get all of my accent pieces cut. They're going to be cut the same size as my directional prints. I'm just going to have one less of them. So I want each side to mirror the other one. So I'm going to make sure when I sew my 2 pieces together, my accent piece and my directional print, my seam is going to be at the very top of that directional print because I want each side to lay the same way. So we're going to focus on making 2 sets of 4. So we're going to do 4 tall twice. We're going to do that 2 times. And then once we get those 2 sets of 4 finished, then we're going to make them mirrored so that each side will lay directionally correct. So the reason why I'm piecing this together today is because I didn't have a piece of fabric that was wide enough, that was 13 inches wide. My scrap of fabric that I really wanted to use was not large enough to do the whole thing. If you have a piece of fabric that is not directional and you want to do the whole thing, then you just need to cut a piece to 13 inches wide by 36 inches long. I'm using 100% quilting cotton. That's the fabric that I'm using today. Now I'm going to go ahead and iron these seams to the side. And the reason why I'm ironing them to the side and not ironing them open is because I think it's going to give it a little more stability. Since this is something you're going to be putting around your neck and kind of tugging on because you're going to have your towel on the ends of it, I didn't want that seam to be open and somewhat exposed, because if one of your if one of your stitches were to come undone, it could easily unravel. So what I did was pressed it to the side, and then I'm going to go ahead and top stitch that seam down, and that is going to make this very strong So you don't have to worry about tugging on each side if you pull it around your neck and you're wiping your hands on the towel. Plus, this is something that's probably going to get washed multiple times, washed and dried. So I want it to be able to stay together really well. Since I am piecing it, all of those little seams have the vulnerability to come undone. So I'm going to make sure that all of those seams are very well reinforced. So that is what I'm doing right now as I'm top stitching, making sure I catch the seam on the back. And I'm just going to do a really narrow top stitch. It's probably 1/8 of an inch. I'm just following my presser foot right in the center of that left side of my presser foot, and I'm just watching so that I get it in the same spot. And that just takes practice, years of doing it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You could use thread that matches the fabric exactly, and then you won't even see that top stitching. So now we're going to fold it in half and line up all those seams and create the tube. I'm just putting a few pins where each of the seams line up. That way when I go to sew it, I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam all the way down the tube. Once I finish that seam, all I'm going to do is put my arm through the tube and pull it out. Since it's wide enough, I can fit my arm in there. It's really handy. Then I'm going to take and iron it flat. I'm ironing the seam on the side because I'm going to go ahead and top stitch around the whole thing. I just think that will also continue to give it more stability. And now I'm going to press under. So we're first going to measure 1/2 inch with a ruler and pin down 1/2 inch because we want to turn that raw edge under inside the tube. Because what we're going to do is when we finish sewing our towel pieces, sewing the pleats in those, we're going to put them inside the tube and we want that edge to be finished. So right here, I'm measuring 1/2 inch. I'm adding a pin. And then I'll just iron it flat. That way my seam will be ironed down. Now the next step we're going to talk about is the towel. I didn't pre-wash my towel. I just purchased it from the store, took the tags off, and I'm lining it up in half. And I'm just going to cut it with my scissors in half, and then I'm going to go back and trim it with my rotary cutter. You're going to put this towel inside the tube, so you probably don't have to go back and trim it with a rotary cutter because it's going to be inside. Your edges aren't going to show anywhere. I just wanted to make sure both of my towels were the same length. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just using that 13-inch mark on my cutting mat to just even out that cut line that I made with the scissors. And I cut both of my towels at the same time, so I know they're exactly the same length. So this is only one kitchen towel. So I'm folding this towel in half with the right sides together, and I'm going to use my grid ruler to measure down 4 inches wide from the fold and 5 inches long from the edge I just cut. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a seam. So I'm going 5 inches down from the cut edge of the towel and 4 inches from the fold of the towel. So we're just going to use our pins as our guide. If you would like, you could use a piece of chalk to mark that line. I'm just using pins to mark it, and I'm just going slow and taking them out and kind of moving them so that one marks my very end. And then I just backstitch. And this is going to make one large pleat in the center of the towel. Your towels that you purchase might be a little bit wider, but that's really not going to matter because we're going to fold in the very edges of the towel just a little bit so that it fits inside that tube perfectly. Now we're just going to do the same thing for the second towel. So I'm bringing this to my ironing board. I'm going to open it up so that I can iron this pleat so that it will lay really nice. We're just going to give it a quick press on both sides, the back and the front. The towel is very thick, and make sure you don't burn it. Just be careful when you're ironing it, depending on what kind of fabric the towel is made out of. So see, I'm just going to fold over the very edges of the towel on the sides. I'm trying not to put too many layers of towel together, so that's why I'm just folding over the very edges of it just a little bit. Just enough so that it fits in that 13-inch tube. And we're just going to slide it inside. Now for the final step is I'm going to top stitch around the whole thing. So I'm going to start at one of my ends of my towel. So I've pinned them both in, and I'm just going to do a quarter or probably an 1/8 inch seam all the way across there, and then I'm just going to continue all the way down the band on each side. This also reinforces the side that your seam is on. You can kind of see my sewing machines jumping a little. When I sew too fast, it's not secured in my desk. It just sits on my desk. It's a pretty powerful machine, so if I sew too fast, if it was secured to the board, I think it would be fine, but it kind of jumps a little. I've gotten used to it, and I don't mind. I like the power that this machine has. And one of these days, I'm going to do a full review on it for you guys. So I'm going ahead and I'm top stitching around the whole thing. And that is the very last step. Once you get all the way around this rectangle, then you are done. And you can give it away as your gift. Or keep it. Throw it in the washing machine. I'm not going to wash this because I want it to look fresh and new, like a clean, brand new purchased item. But you could also wash it if you want to before you give it away. I don't think it really matters. That's just what I'm going to do, and I'm going to give it away as a gift. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.